Ambassador Carlos Vance, Earth's finest diplomat, stood at the center of the Galactic Council chamber, his voice steady and deliberate. The towering amphitheater, carved from crystalline rock and bathed in a soft azure glow, was filled with representatives of dozens of species, their forms as varied as their worlds. Carlos, clad in a sharp black suit adorned with the Earth emblem, commanded attention as he concluded his address. "Humanity does not seek dominance," he declared, his tone firm yet conciliatory. "We seek cooperation. Together, we can usher in an era of unparalleled prosperity. Let today mark the dawn of unity." A murmur swept through the chamber. Most listened in contemplative silence, but a few, like the Zanari delegation, whispered with visible disdain. The Zanari ambassador, Lord Ralvok, a sinewy being with scales glinting like liquid metal, narrowed his amber eyes. As the formalities concluded, ceremonial drinks were distributed, a gesture of goodwill in council tradition. Carlos lifted his chalice, its contents swirling with iridescent hues. He hesitated for a moment, catching the faintest flicker of movement from the Zanari delegation. Then, with a poise befitting a seasoned diplomat, he drank. Moments later, his hand faltered. The chalice slipped from his grasp, shattering against the polished floor. Carlos's knees buckled as he collapsed, his face pale, his breath shallow. The chamber erupted in chaos. "Medics," barked Commander Adrian Warner, Carlos's closest aide and the captain of the Earth security contingent. Tall and broad-shouldered, Adrian pushed through the panicked crowd, kneeling beside Carlos. His sharp blue eyes scanned the ambassador's ashen face. "Stay with me, sir. Stay with me." A group of medics rushed forward, their multi-limb frames working frantically to stabilize Carlos. Their instruments hummed, casting a soft green glow, but the prognosis was grim. "Neurotoxin," one medic announced gravely. "Fast-acting. He'll need specialized care." Adrian's jaw tightened. His gaze snapped to the Zanari delegation, who remained conspicuously silent amidst the uproar. Lord Ralvok's expression was unreadable, though his aide fidgeted nervously. Admiral Paul Thorne, head of Earth's fleet station near the neutral zone, received the news within minutes. A man of few words but decisive action, Thorne was known for his unshakable resolve. He stood on the bridge of the Lioness, a flagship brimming with cutting-edge technology. "Details," he demanded, his gravelly voice cutting through the tense air. Adrian, now aboard the ship, delivered his report. "We have footage, Admiral." The Zanari aide tampered with the ambassador's drink. This was a deliberate act. Thorne's expression darkened. His silver-streaked hair and weathered face betrayed years of hard-earned experience. This wasn't just an attack on Carlos Vance. It was an attack on Earth's honor, and they think they can get away with it. "We can't let this go unanswered," Adrian said, his fist clenched. "The council might stall with bureaucracy, but we can't afford to wait." Thorne nodded. "Agreed. The Zanari need a reminder of who they're dealing with. Assemble the strike force. Minimal civilian casualties. This is about sending a message, not waging genocide." Adrian saluted sharply. "Understood, sir." Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Carlos lay motionless, his condition stabilized but critical. Advanced Earth technology kept him alive, but the neurotoxin resisted their most potent antidotes. Adrian visited the medbay, standing silently by Carlos's side. The ambassador had been a mentor, a man who believed in diplomacy even when others clamored for war. "You always said words were our strongest weapons," Adrian murmured. "But sometimes actions speak louder. We'll make this right." Back in the council chamber, accusations flew like plasma bolts. The Zanari ambassador vehemently denied involvement. "This baseless claim is an insult. The Zanari have no reason to harm your ambassador," Ralvok hissed, his voice a sharp counterpoint to the rising clamor. "Evidence says otherwise," countered a representative of the Kellner Alliance, a feline-like species aligned with Earth. "Your aide's actions were captured on record." Ralvok's gaze flicked to his aide, whose silence was damning. This is a fabrication, but the Council was already fracturing. Some members demanded immediate sanctions, while others hesitated, fearing war with the Zanari. On board the Lioness, the human fleet prepared for deployment. Adrian stood before his team, a mix of seasoned officers and fresh recruits. "We're not here for revenge," he told them, his voice steady but steely. "We're here to ensure no one dares underestimate humanity again. We strike hard, we strike fast, and we show them what it means to provoke us." In the strategy room, Thorne finalized the plan. "We'll target their orbital defenses and key outposts. A precise strike. No unnecessary bloodshed, but decisive enough to cripple their ability to retaliate. Commander Warner, you'll lead the fighter squadron. I trust you can handle it." Adrian nodded. "Count on it." As the fleet powered up, engines humming with barely contained energy, Thorne addressed the crew. "The Zanari thought they could poison our resolve by taking down one man. Instead, they lit a fire that will burn through their arrogance. Let's show them what humanity is made of." The ships launched into hyperspace, the stars stretching into streaks of light. The crew knew the stakes. This was not just a mission of retribution, but a declaration that humanity would not be trifled with. The Lioness dropped out of hyperspace with a shimmer of light, followed by the rest of the human fleet. The Zanari system stretched before them, its primary star casting a cold, pale glow over the distant planet of Zyron, the Zanari homeworld. Admiral Paul Thorne stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, his piercing gaze fixed on the tactical display. "All ships accounted for," reported Lieutenant Carter, the fleet's operations officer. His crisp, professional demeanor belied the tension rippling through the crew. Thorne gave a curt nod. "Then it begins." The tactical display flickered, highlighting the target, a heavily armed orbital defense platform stationed above Zyron's largest military outpost. Its massive railguns and missile arrays were designed to repel invasions, but Thorne had no intention of fighting a drawn-out battle. "Commander Warner, your fighters will neutralize their anti-aircraft batteries," Thorne ordered, his voice steady. "Holt, your ground team will deploy once the orbital defenses are down. Precision is key. We're sending a message, not igniting a war." "Yes, sir," Adrian Warner replied, saluting sharply. His fighter squadron had been briefed, and the pilots were ready. Clad in a black flight suit, Adrian adjusted his helmet as he boarded his sleek interceptor. The cockpit sealed with a hiss, and the fighter's HUD flared to life. On the ground deck, Lieutenant Colonel Damien Holt led his Marines through final checks. His gravelly voice barked orders as they secured their armor and weapons, each designed for adaptability in alien environments. Holt's imposing frame and scarred face marked him as a veteran of countless skirmishes. "Listen up," he called out, his voice cutting through the clamor. "This isn't about glory. It's about showing them that humanity doesn't back down. Stick to your training, watch your six, and we'll get this done cleanly." "Understood." A resounding "yes, sir" echoed from his team as they loaded into their drop pods, the atmosphere crackling with anticipation. As Adrian's squadron roared out of the carrier bays, their engines leaving trails of blue light, the Zanari defense platform activated its targeting systems. Bright red beams began tracking the incoming ships, but Adrian was ready. "Squadron, form up," Adrian commanded. "Evasive maneuvers on my mark. Engage targets with precision strikes. Let's make it quick." The Zanari defenses opened fire, a barrage of plasma bolts lighting up the void. Adrian's squadron weaved through the chaos, their fighters darting like needles through a tapestry of destruction. Adrian's voice remained calm over the comms as he issued commands, his sharp reflexes allowing him to disable one anti-aircraft turret after another. Meanwhile, aboard the Lioness, Admiral Thorne monitored the battle with a practiced eye. "Maintain fire support," he ordered. "Cover Warner's squadron, but don't draw unnecessary attention. We want them looking the wrong way when the Marines land." The first phase of the operation unfolded with brutal efficiency. Adrian's squadron eliminated key defensive systems, leaving the orbital platform vulnerable. Seizing the opportunity, the Lioness unleashed a salvo of guided missiles, their engines burning like comets as they streaked toward the platform. Explosions rippled across its surface, leaving it crippled and defenseless. Orbital defenses neutralized, Adrian reported as he guided his fighter back toward the fleet. "Ground team, you're clear for deployment." "Roger that," Holt replied, securing his helmet as his drop pods hatch sealed. The pods launched in rapid succession, hurtling toward the planet's surface. The entry was rough, the atmosphere roaring against their heat shields, but Holt's team was trained for this. The drop pods slammed into the ground near the Zanari military outpost, their impact leaving smoking craters. Within seconds, the Marines deployed their advanced exosuits, enhancing their movements as they spread out in disciplined formation. "Move, move, move," Holt bellowed, leading the charge. The Zanari defenders were already scrambling, caught off guard by the speed and precision of the assault. Their insectoid forms moved with an erratic grace, wielding weapons that spat bursts of violet energy. Holt's team responded with disciplined volleys of gunfire, each shot guided by targeting algorithms integrated into their helmets. The battle on the ground was fierce but one-sided. The Marines' superior training and technology gave them the upper hand. Using their exosuits' enhanced strength, they breached fortified structures, neutralizing resistance with surgical precision. Adrian, still in his fighter, provided close air support, strafing enemy positions with pinpoint accuracy. "Watch your left flank, Holt," he warned over the comms, spotting a group of Zanari reinforcements approaching. "Copy that," Holt replied, his tone grim but focused. He directed a squad to intercept, their plasma grenades reducing the reinforcements to scattered remnants. As the Marines pushed deeper into the outpost, they encountered stiffer resistance. Holt led the assault on the command center, its defenses reinforced with energy shields and automated turrets. The battle became a grueling slog, with Holt's team relying on coordinated tactics and brute determination to break through. Inside the command center, the Zanari commander, a towering figure with a chitinous crest, stood defiantly. Holt wasted no time. "Surrender and you'll live," he growled, his rifle trained on the alien. The commander hissed in response, lunging forward. Holt didn't hesitate. A single shot ended the standoff. "Command center secured," Holt reported, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Back on the Lioness, Thorne received the update with a satisfied nod. "Good work, Holt. Begin extraction. Let's not overstay our welcome." As the Marines regrouped for evacuation, Adrian's fighters circled above, ensuring no further resistance threatened the operation. The fleet, now pulling back from the Zanari system, maintained a defensive formation as the dropships returned. The operation had been a success, but the weight of their actions lingered. On board the fleet, the mood was subdued. Holt's Marines tended to their wounded, while Adrian debriefed his pilots. Thorne, standing in his quarters, stared out at the stars, his expression unreadable. "This is just the beginning," he murmured to himself. Smoke and dust clung to the air as Lieutenant Colonel Damian Holt surveyed the smoldering remains of the Zanari Outpost Command Center. His helmet visor flickered with tactical data, highlighting enemy movements outside the perimeter. Though victorious in the initial assault, his instincts warned him the fight was far from over. "Colonel, we've detected a large energy signature approaching from the west," Sergeant Vega reported, his voice tense through the comms. He crouched near a terminal, his gauntlet hands deftly tapping at the alien interface. "How large?" Holt asked, his tone clipped but calm. "Too large for comfort. Looks like reinforcements, and they're bringing armor," Vega replied grimly. Holt's eyes narrowed. Reinforcements this quickly meant the Zanari had anticipated retaliation, or worse, planned to bait the humans into an extended engagement. Either way, the situation was escalating. "Contact Commander Warner. We'll need immediate air support," Holt ordered, turning to his squad. "Marines, dig in. Set up kill zones and defensive perimeters. We'll make them bleed for every inch." Above the planet, Adrian Warner was already responding to the distress call. His squadron, still refueling and rearming aboard the Lioness, scrambled to their fighters as the Admiral's voice rang over the comms. "Commander Warner, your orders are clear. Support Holt's position and delay the enemy advance," Thorne instructed. "Their reinforcements must not retake that outpost." "Understood, Admiral," Adrian replied, his fighter roaring to life as he launched into the fray. The sight of the battlefield below, an eerie contrast of crimson flames and scorched earth, filled his cockpit display. On the ground, the Zanari counteroffensive struck like a tidal wave. Their war machines, hulking constructs of dark metal and shifting energy fields, lumbered forward, their plasma cannons spitting violet death. Zanari infantry swarmed alongside, their movements unerringly coordinated, each step driven by a cold determination to reclaim the outpost. Holt's team responded with disciplined precision. Railgun emplacements and automated turrets lit up the battlefield, tearing through the first wave of attackers. Marines fired from cover, their adaptive armor absorbing glancing hits while returning fire with deadly accuracy. "Hold the line!" Holt barked, his voice rising above the cacophony of battle. He moved with purpose, rallying his troops and reinforcing weak points in their defense. Adrian's arrival shifted the tide. His squadron descended like avenging angels, missiles streaking toward the Zanari war machines. Explosions rippled across the battlefield as tanks erupted in plumes of fire, their twisted remains scattering enemy infantry. "Air support is here," Adrian announced, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Focus on the armor. Holt, your ground teams can mop up the rest." "About time," Holt replied, a rare hint of relief in his voice. "Let's give these bastards something to remember." The humans pressed their advantage, but the Zanari refused to retreat. Their commanders seemed willing to sacrifice endless waves of soldiers to reclaim the outpost. Amidst the chaos, Holt noticed a pattern. The Zanari reinforcements were concentrating their attacks on a specific sector of the perimeter. "They're up to something," Holt muttered. "Vega, get me eyes on Sector 3. I want to know what's so important there." The sergeant deployed a reconnaissance drone, its small frame zipping over the battlefield. The live feed revealed the answer: a convoy of Zanari engineers escorted by heavily armed guards. They were headed for a subterranean vault buried beneath the outpost. "They're trying to secure something underground," Holt said, piecing it together. "Whatever it is, they're willing to die for it." On the Lioness, Admiral Thorne monitored the battlefield with a calculated intensity. When Holt's report came through, his expression hardened. "Colonel, whatever's down there cannot fall back into their hands," Thorne said. "Take your best team and secure that vault. We'll cover your flanks from orbit if necessary." Holt wasted no time. "Vega, Richter on me," he ordered, motioning to two of his most trusted Marines. "The rest of you hold the line. We're going underground." Adrian, still coordinating airstrikes above, caught wind of the mission. "You're going in blind, Holt," he warned over the comms. "Don't get yourself killed. Don't worry about me," Holt shot back. "Just keep frying their toys up here." The underground vault was an imposing structure of alien design, its entrance guarded by a squad of Zanari elites. Holt's team moved swiftly, neutralizing the guards with silent precision. Inside, the air was heavy and cold, the walls pulsing faintly with a strange energy. "Whatever this is," Vega said, eyeing the glowing conduits lining the corridor, "it's not just another weapon depot." The team reached the heart of the vault, where a massive crystalline structure hummed with latent power. Alien glyphs danced across its surface, casting eerie reflections onto the Marine's armor. "Command, we've found it," Holt reported. "Looks like some kind of power source, or a data core. Whatever it is, it's important. Secure it and get out," Thorne replied. "We'll analyze it back on the Lioness." Holt's team began extracting the core, but the Zanari weren't finished. A fresh wave of reinforcements, alerted to the vault's breach, stormed the underground corridors. The ensuing battle was a desperate, close-quarters melee, plasma bolts illuminating the darkened hallways. Vega fell during the fight, struck down while covering Holt's flank. Gritting his teeth, Holt pressed on, his rifle barking as he cut down the last of the attackers. "We're clear," Holt said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and grief. "Core secured. Extraction now." Above ground, Adrian's squadron continued their relentless assault, buying Holt's team precious minutes to escape. The Marines emerged from the vault, battered but victorious, as the Zanari forces began their retreat. Back aboard the Lioness, the humans regrouped. The Corps was placed in containment for analysis, its mysteries a potential key to understanding Zanari technology, or a threat even greater than they realized. Adrian and Holt exchanged a brief, silent nod in the debrief room, their shared respect unspoken but palpable. "Good work," Thorne said, addressing both men. "We've dealt them a serious blow, but this isn't over. They'll come for us, and we need to be ready." As the fleet prepared for its next move, the weight of their actions hung heavy. The victory was undeniable, but the cost, both in lives and what they had uncovered, hinted at even greater challenges ahead. The Lioness drifted silently through the void, its corridors buzzing with quiet activity. The battle had ended, but the atmosphere aboard the flagship remained tense. Humanity had struck a decisive blow against the Zanari, yet the discovery of the crystalline core in the enemy vault had left more questions than answers. Admiral Paul Thorne sat in the briefing room, staring at the holographic projection of the core. Alien glyphs shimmered across its surface, their meanings incomprehensible even to the fleet's most advanced translation algorithms. Beside him, Lieutenant Colonel Damian Holt and Commander Adrian Warner waited, their expressions mirroring the gravity of the moment. "The core is a power source, but it's more than that," said Dr. Malcolm Reeve, the fleet's chief scientist, his voice filled with both excitement and unease. "Its energy signatures suggest capabilities far beyond our understanding. If the Zanari were deploying this technology, it's no wonder they were so desperate to protect it. Can we weaponize it?" Holt asked bluntly, his arms crossed over his chest. The scar running along his jawline caught the light as he leaned forward, his body language a mix of tension and determination. "That would be unwise," Dr. Reeve replied, choosing his words carefully. "The core's energy output is unstable. Any attempt to harness it recklessly could trigger catastrophic results." Adrian, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. "So, what's the play here? If we can't use it, do we destroy it?" Thorne shook his head. "Not yet. If the Zanari were willing to risk an all-out war for this, it's too valuable to discard. We need to understand its purpose and its implications. Reeve, make it your top priority." "Yes, Admiral," the scientist replied, though his unease was palpable. The debriefing ended, but the tension lingered. Adrian caught up with Holt in the corridor as the two men made their way to the mess hall. The faint hum of the ship's engines filled the silence between them. "You lost people down there," Adrian said, breaking the quiet. Holt nodded, his face grim. "Vega didn't deserve to go out like that. None of them did. But we knew the risks." Adrian placed a hand on Holt's shoulder. "You did what had to be done. They knew what they were fighting for. We all do." Holt exhaled sharply, nodding. "I just hope it's enough." Meanwhile, in the Zanari system, the fallout from humanity's strike rippled across the galactic stage. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, its chamber filled with tension and accusation. Lord Ralvok stood at the center, his metallic scales dull under the chamber's harsh lights. His voice was venomous as he addressed the assembly. "The humans have overstepped their bounds," he thundered. "Their unprovoked aggression has endangered the delicate balance of this council. Are we to allow such barbarism to go unchecked?" A representative of the Kellner Alliance, feline and lithe, rose in response. "Unprovoked? It was your treachery that started this. You attempted to assassinate their ambassador in this very chamber. Did you think there would be no consequences?" The chamber erupted into chaos as voices clashed. The once fragile unity of the Galactic Council began to fracture further. Behind closed doors, alliances shifted and whispers of war spread like wildfire. Back aboard the Lioness, Thorn prepared for the next phase of their operation. With the Zanari retreating to regroup, the human fleet had a momentary reprieve, but no one aboard believed it would last. Thorn called a private meeting with Holt and Adrian in his quarters, a Spartan room adorned only with a worn leather-bound book and a model of Earth. The Admiral's gaze was as hard as the steel walls surrounding them. "We've bought ourselves some time," Thorn began, "but the Zanari won't let this stand. They'll come back, and next time, they'll be ready." Holt leaned forward, his hands resting on the table. "What's the plan, sir?" "We need allies," Thorn replied. "The Council is too fractured to act decisively, but there are species out there watching. They've seen what humanity is capable of. Some of them will want to stand with us. Others might decide we're too dangerous." Adrian smirked faintly. Nothing like a little fear to earn respect. Thorn didn't return the smile. "Respect is earned, Commander. Fear is a temporary advantage. We need to solidify our position, both strategically and diplomatically." He turned to Holt. "Colonel, your ground teams will conduct recon on key Zanari positions. Gather intelligence on their next moves, and disrupt their supply chains where possible. Precision strikes only. I don't want to escalate unnecessarily." Holt nodded. "Understood." Thorn shifted his attention to Adrian. "Warner, you'll handle fleet operations. Patrol our borders, maintain readiness, and be prepared to engage if they push back." Adrian saluted. "Consider it done." The days turned into weeks as the fleet prepared for the inevitable retaliation. The crystalline core, now secured in a reinforced containment chamber, continued to puzzle the scientists. Dr. Reeves' updates were sporadic, each one a mix of breakthroughs and warnings. One evening, Holt found himself in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The weight of recent events pressed heavily on him. Adrian joined him, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "You ever think about what comes next?" Adrian asked, handing Holt a cup. "Always," Holt replied, taking a sip. "But lately, it's hard to see beyond the next battle." Adrian chuckled softly. "Yeah, well, that's kind of our job. Still, this whole mess, it's bigger than us. Bigger than anything we've faced before." Holt nodded. "All the more reason to see it through